what happens because I don't really know how to use IG clearly. Anyway, I got bounced off. I was having a very great conversation, but I did want to focus this and at least do one of these questions I've been asked before many times about moving abroad. And so I was going to pose it to the audience, but then I got kicked out and now no one's here. So I guess I'll just have to choose a question to answer just on my own. Okay, so I will say this one. We'll do this one. A question that's been asked to me several times is how and when should I start learning a foreign language? I'm actually doing a YouTube video on this, but I thought, you know what, I mean, I could say this again and that's not a problem. But I would say how and when should you start learning a foreign language? Now you should obviously start learning the language if you have any kinds of hopes and dreams of moving abroad to a place in which you do not speak the language proficiently. You should start now. And how you should do that, you should really like switch your phone settings to be in that language. And I think sometimes people think like, well, that doesn't really do anything. And then you switch it and you're like, holy crap, I don't understand anything that's happening. And I say to do that because you'll have that like shock, but then it'll just become like, it's a very interesting thing. It's like a conscious and subconscious way to learn a language, in my opinion, because at first you're like, what the hell is going on? I don't know. And then you'll have to start intuitively figuring it out. And that's a good way to pick up, I think, like some different kind of language than like a Duolingo, right? Like learning what settings is in whatever language. That's a different kind of skill set. I also would say make sure that you are listening to music and videos in your target language. But also, I think the thing about language is about use. I minored in Spanish. I studied abroad in Valencia. I worked at the Camino de Santiago, and I moved to Spain. And with all of that, and I lived in Miami too. And with all of that, without the continuous use of Spanish, it is like what I was just bumbling. Now, when I lived in La Rioja, when I lived in northern Spain, when nobody was really speaking English like that, unless they were fellow auxiliaries or something like that, I was forced to acquire the language because I had to use it. When I moved to Barcelona, people just speak to me in English. They hear my very bad Spanish accent and they just speak to me in English. And because I know like they will probably speak to me in English, it makes you lazy. And it really, like I have all these years of language knowledge. And the crazy thing is that my ability to read and comprehend is much higher than my ability to speak the language. It's crazy, actually. Like, I can actually sit down with a newspaper and just be like, okay, what's happening? Got it. But, like, hearing and speaking, they're at such crazy levels. It's horrible. And that's because of use. So, you've got to use it. You got to put yourself in positions to use it. Like, pay for a class. Sometimes that accountability, like, forces you to do it. But also find opportunities to use it. Like online exchanges, you have to use the language. And I would highly suggest doing it before you move abroad because a lot of I've never been a socially anxious person, but when I moved abroad, I definitely developed some social anxiety all around language, just like all around language, all around being like just upset that I couldn't communicate if I was, my attitude I felt or something or getting what I wanted. It was all around language. So, and when you think about language, you're like, yeah, it's a big thing, but also there's other things to contend with when you're in a different country. Oh my goodness. So learn now. There's no oh, you're too early. No, you're never too early. Like, what are you talking about? Thank you. Like, don't. Oh, great, Tia. Sorry, you guys. I don't know what happened for the last one. I don't know what's going on. So there's that. Yes, Carla says, yes, I'm having challenges with French. I learned Spanish. I agree. Yeah, and French. Oh my goodness. So Barcelona is really close to the French border. And like getting to France is like no thing. So I was like, oh, I'm going to probably pick up French. And French, from all the French people that I've met, they've always tell me, they're like, do not try to read French. They're like, no, that's not how you do it. Don't do that. Like, they're like, you need to just go and speak French. Like, just start learning the sounds and try to converse, because it's not a phonetic, what would they say? It's like not a phonetic Romance language. Like, a lot of Romance languages are like, what am I trying to say? Like, yeah, they're more like phonetic. Like, you can like see them and you'd be like, oh, okay, I can figure it out. And French is not like that. At least that's what it was explained to me. Also, with my own experimentation, trying to like bumble through France, and they're just like, what are you saying? And I'm like, just looking at the word, they're like, don't look at the word. What are you trying to say to me? French is, yeah, it's on my list. It's on my list, but we'll see. Cool Chick 88, hello, how are you? I'm learning European Portuguese. Well, tell me, Cool Chick, where are you currently? And I'm assuming you're wanting to move to Portugal. Which city in Portugal, and what's your timeline? Portuguese. Okay, I just said like I may learn French, but I actually might learn Portuguese before, because Portuguese, oh gosh, I feel like it's the language of the Portuguese language to me in my ear always sounds like, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and then they always throw in a wrench, and I'm like, what does that sound? What are you talking about? So it's such a, I don't know, it's such a sneaky language to me, because I'm like, I feel like I understand the rhythm and like some of the words, I'm like, okay, I get it. And then they say something or use a sound, and I'm just like, whoa, like it throws me all the way off. And it's not like, Italian and Spanish are obviously distinct languages, but they're closer, I guess. I don't know. I got around Italy speaking Spanish, and just kind of Italianizing my Spanish. So that's why I feel like it's easier. But Portuguese. Yeah, I don't know. All right, you're in California and you want to move to Lisboa for school. I love the language. See, that's the thing too. Loving the language is really important. If you don't love the language, or if you don't have any interest in the language, or even interest in what the vehicle of language can do for you, which is create community, which is create independence. If that's not of interest to you, then I don't think like learning the language is going to be difficult. For example, there are several communities, cities, towns here in Spain on the coast that are like English towns. They are full of English retirees that have no interest in learning Spanish. They have their own fish and chip pubs, and they're just like, we just want to have our exact same experience, but in Spain where we get more sun and it's a better cost of living, which is not the thing to do. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but a lot of them are. And I always tell people, moving abroad is not like picking up your home, taking away all things you dislike and plopping it down in a different country. But I guess if you're English, it could be like that, at least in Spain. There's a lot of places where they're like, they don't speak any Spanish at all. Fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. But honestly, for me, my goal for 2021 is to get back on my Spanish for sure. Like I said, like my reading comprehension is like, I got it. I understand what's happening. If you write it down for me, I understand what's happening. If you speak to me, I'm going to be like, what? Huh? You're talking too fast or something like that. And if you want me to speak back to you, I'm going to be like thinking about it. And for me, it's just about building community. It's about independence. It's just about respect too. I've lived here for a while and I've allowed myself to get kind of lazy with it. And I'm not really a lazy person. And I know that with some concerted effort and application, I'm going to be fine. So there is that. I want to answer one more of these frequently asked questions that I am going to be making into a YouTube video, so check that out. Which one should I do? I'll do this one because I think Carla, you might be able to chime in on this one if you're still here. That question is, oh wait, I have another question from Tia. Tia says, is Catalan really necessary in Barcelona? I'm learning the language just in case. That's such a good question. Is it really necessary? It depends on what your goals are. Professionally, probably it won't be necessary, especially if you're teaching in in an international high school. It probably won't be necessary. To get around, it probably won't be necessary. However, if you want to make Catalan friends, and Catalan people are fairly insular, in my opinion. They're not like warm, open like Andalus. Like the Andaluses are like, hey, what's up? Like, we're here. You know, Andalusia is in southern Spain, so it's a whole different vibe. But I think it's like any country, like at least any country in the northern hemisphere, like the southern part of the country is always like warm and hospitable. And the northern part is like not necessarily, but it doesn't mean like they're not good or nice people. It's just different. And so to make Catalan friends, sure, learning Catalan would be necessary. If you have a partner who's Catalan, that would be necessary. But for like day-to-day life, I don't think so. But I think it comes into your brain, like it seeps into it, right? Like I can fill out an application in Catalan. Have I learned Catalan, or have I even tried or Duolingo'd? No, never. I've never done that. It's fairly similar-ish to Spanish, and the things that aren't, you can figure it out with context clues, and you see it in repetition. Here in Barcelona and in all Catalunya, everything is like first Catalan, then Spanish, and then other languages. So I don't think it's necessary. I know a lot of people who've lived here for a long time that don't speak Catalan, but I think it depends on what your goals are. I don't speak Catalan except for like bon dia. Like that's about it, or adieu, or like merci. I don't speak Catalan. Do I feel like I'm missing out? I don't really feel like I am, but also how would I know? Because I don't speak Catalan. So I don't know if that's a good answer for you. Not really. It's not necessary. But I mean, learning some phrases is always nice. I know some phrases. I say them to like some people in like the bakery or something, or and I think people appreciate that. But I don't know if it's necessary. Let me know if that was helpful. I feel like that was a ramble. Okay. So let me move on to this next question and we'll wrap it up, which is a frequently asked question is, how do I make professional contacts before I move? I love this question because I'm all about this. This is all about being intentional, about really being very specific about what kind of experience you want to have when you go abroad. How do you envision your professional wellness? How do you envision your life in this next chapter? It's not just, oh, I live here now. It is so much more. I think for you to have a sustainable experience abroad, I think for you to have an enjoyable chapter of your life, it's important to be just intentional. It just is. So making professional contacts before you move, I think, is the thing to do. As I said, I don't know if Carla's still here, but I think Carla would be amazing to speak to this because she has been abroad working in higher ed abroad for like the last 10, 15 years, I think. And so she's all about making those professional contacts. But I will say for me, I moved to Spain in 2017, but I had studied abroad in Spain. I walked the Camino de Santiago in 2014. That was when I decided I was definitely going to move to Spain. And from that point, I started to make professional contacts. I am an entrepreneur and I do business consulting. And so I was always up in the entrepreneurial Facebook groups for Spain, for, the Guiris, the foreigners, and I was just introducing myself and just being a part of the mix and seeing what was going on, what were their struggles, learned about like the horrors of the autonomo visa. I learned a lot of different things because I was like a part of the community. I talk to people one-on-one on Skype. I asked people questions. I contributed to conversations. I developed professional contacts. So fast forward, when I moved to Spain in 2017, I moved to Spain to do a sabbatical. I was like, I'm going to teach English for 9 months. That's what I'm going to do. So when I moved to Spain in August, and the contract started like in October, I actually had one of my professional contacts hit me up in like late August, September, and was like, hey, Christine, are you in Spain yet? And I was like, oh, I am. She was like, oh, I have a friend who works for an intellectual property law firm, an international intellectual property law firm in Madrid, that they're looking for your kind of credentials. Would you be interested in having a conversation? And so I did. I had a conversation. I had several. It didn't land to a job, but that's the kind of thing that you need to do. If you have a vision for your life, and if you have a vision for your career and you want to pursue something very specific, you need to make those contacts. I'm a big, big believer in that. So that's LinkedIn. Some people have 2 LinkedIn accounts. One that is in like their home country and ping towards that. Another one that's been fully translated professionally and that's pointed towards their country that they want to go to. You can do that, or you can use both, or you can use one to do that. Utilizing Facebook groups. I know Facebook is problematic. It is, but there's really a lot of great stuff on Facebook groups, certain Facebook groups, and you can meet a lot of amazing people. Now with Clubhouse, which I really enjoy, if you're not on Clubhouse, get on Clubhouse. I feel like the professional contacts I make there would have been very helpful when I wanted to move abroad, because it's very global and the conversations are very intimate, and so you get to really showcase kind of your ethos on whatever you do. So yeah, I would do that. I would also tap into your own network, which I think a lot of people are hesitant to do because they're like, I don't want people to know that I'm moving abroad. I don't want people up in my business. So you don't have to, and you're like, I don't know if I'm definitely going to do it. But it's like, hey, what's the harm in just being like, oh, do you know like a person in this country or this region? If you don't even want to get that specific, then you need to research about whatever you do and how's it done in that region, what are the trends in that region, and then you can come at it like kind of sneakily that way and be like, oh, I'm interested in this topic and all the subject matter experts are in this region. Oh, really? Okay, I'll just talk to these people. Whatever it is you need to do, but that's what you need to do, right? You need to utilize your network. You got to put yourself in those positions. You have to ask. You have to make the ask. You have to put yourself out there and say, me, I want the information. I'm the one. And that's how you do it. I also should suggest like professional conferences, international ones. Even if you have to foot the bill, go meet people, make friends, build relationships. That's a thing to do. But I know Carla has said some stuff, and I know she's going to say some really amazing stuff. So let me see. Carla says, yes, I make contact via LinkedIn. My associations for higher ed and international higher education, right? That's the way to do it. She also says, get a mentor in the area / career professionals that is abroad. That is really important too. I'm a big believer, I'm going to keep on saying this, in being intentional when you go abroad. And so to be intentional, you need to, in my opinion, invest in the tools, the resources, the people that are going to help you get to where you want to go. Not everything you can do as a DIY project. Like, not everything is Pinterest. Like, it just isn't. Especially if you have a specific timeline, if you got certain kind of bills or responsibilities or something like that, you need to invest in the resources that are going to help you get to where you want to go. whether it be conferences, associations, mentorships, or certain types of coaching. They're going to get you there. That's how you create the professional contacts. There's a lot of stuff you can do on your own for free and stuff like that. But let me tell you, my timeline, as I said, I did the Camino Santiago at the end of 2014, or in the mid. Yeah, I got back like in October 2014. I decided I wanted to move to Spain like in November 2014. I moved to Spain August 2017, right? And I moved to Spain on a sabbatical, which was necessary, but it wasn't necessarily in my career field at first. So if you're like, no, Christine, I have a timeline. I need to move abroad at this time, and I need to move abroad in my industry, doing what I need to do, then you need to invest in these resources, right? It took me years to cultivate these contacts. They paid off. They've been very interesting. A lot of other kind of cool opportunities have come my way. But if you don't got time like that, then that's what you gotta do. You gotta invest. That's what I gotta say. Carly says, attend conferences or webinars and connect with the presenters. Yes. Yes. She also says, get a career or expat coach in the area of interest. Yeah. It's just so important. Hire a headhunter, a recruiter, an agency. If you're really trying to go abroad the way you want to go. I just think like, I don't know. I'm a big believer in like people, like paying people with expertise. Like they have been through the struggle, or they have the education, they have the contacts. Like that's what you're paying for, so that you don't got to do it because you got other things to do. So I'm a big believer in that. That's a cheat code. So that is it. Let me know if you have any other questions, either about the podcast. Maybe you've listened to an episode, you have a question about it. Maybe you want to see different types of countries, people, careers, whatever it is. Yes, you want to see on the podcast, let me know. I might be bringing it to you via podcast, or I might be bringing it to you via YouTube, because the YouTube channel is about to really, I don't know, be lit. I don't know. I don't know. It's 2020, y'all. I don't know. It's going to be great. I have a lot of really great content and some really cool interviews. I'll tease it for you since you guys are here. I have a really great interview with Kristen of Certified Africa, talking about how to go abroad to the continent of Africa. Her and her husband have a really interesting business, a relocation business, very interesting, based in Ghana. I also have another interview coming up with Aquania, who is a 3-time expat to Ecuador, UAE, and Haiti. And she's talking all about finances and going abroad. We're talking about the nitty-gritty, about investing while you're abroad, managing your money while you're abroad, how to grow and build wealth while you're abroad, tax implications when you're abroad. I mean, that's going to probably be a series, because we talked for a hot minute, like an hour, maybe more. And I was like, I have more questions. She has an amazing podcast. So in the meantime, between time, if you're like, I need to hear what she has to say, her podcast is called The Purpose of Money Podcast. Her name is Aquania Escarnet. I think she still is a diplomat. She was a diplomat in the UAE, Ecuador, and Haiti. And she talked about we really got down into like, not only how to manage your money, but how the evolution of managing your finances and investing really happens while you're abroad. So she went abroad single, married, and with kids. And we talked about it. And I feel like we could talk about it. I'm going to have her on the podcast in a couple of months when we get down to it. And I feel like there's so much stuff to talk about, because as you guys know, it's about thriving abroad. It's not about enduring or struggling abroad. It's about thriving. So it's about a holistic approach to a life well lived. So we're talking about financial wellness and professional wellness. And we got to make sure that it's straight. We got to make sure that it is on fire for whatever your goals are, right? Doesn't mean that it's for you to buy a Bentley if you don't want to buy a Bentley, or I don't know, or whatever else. Like, it's not about that. It's about what is it what does a life well lived mean to you? What does that look like for you? And how can you cultivate that now? If it's about developing, building wealth for you, wealth also is whatever you want it to mean. Okay. It doesn't mean that, I don't know, it's Daddy Warbucks. I don't know. It doesn't mean that. Wealth just means there's an abundance and a continuance of, right? And wealth really is kind of dissociated from necessarily your income, but it's about assets, right? Things that that have value, building on that. That's what we're talking about. So I have a lot of amazing content coming at you. I took a little break. I'm feeling better. And I'm really ready because I have a lot of really cool stuff for y'all. 2021. Regardless if there's a lockdown or whatever, we're going to rock and roll. We're going to thrive abroad. And that's what we're going to do. All right. So if there's no other questions, I'll give you guys like 2 seconds. There's no other questions, concerns, or things like that. I did want to shout out to everyone who has supported this podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the reviews. Thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for cash apping the podcast. Thank you for becoming a Patreon of the podcast. Thank you. Thank you so much. I now, as you guys see, I'm not holding the phone anymore. I have a tripod. I got a whole ring light. Thank you. Thank you guys. You guys made it possible. So thank you so, so much. I have a question from Karen. Oh, hey, Karen. She says, are people still relocating during the pandemic from the U.S.? Oh my goodness. From what I'm reading online, yes, people are still going abroad. Now, the question now will be, regardless of how you guys feel about vaccines, because it's not a vaccine conversation, all right? I don't want to go there. But now I think the question will be several different things that are I think it'll be really an era of, at least for Americans, probably for several other people, pre-COVID kind of immigration and post-COVID immigration or whatever you guys want to say. One, about vaccines. I think that, in my opinion, Americans will have to be vaccinated probably to immigrate to a lot of places. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no. But, okay, a lot of places require you to have vaccines even before COVID. I don't understand, I don't really understand that feeling. Now, the whole process of it, how fast it was, whatever, that's a different conversation. But there's plenty of places that to visit, you have to have a vaccination. So there's that. I think people will still move for sure if they are financially able to. I think that more countries will be more stringent on their visa requirements. Making sure that you are solvent and things like that, which I mean, a lot of countries require some kind of solvency or proof of solvency, but the requirements may change for sure. So I think those are the two biggest things that may change in 2021. Also, I think maybe you just may have to expend more to go abroad, just because, depending on if the flights come back, flights may be just more expensive to go abroad. If you don't know people abroad where you're going, you may have a huge target on your back. I mean, most foreigners do. You have the foreign tax, but if you're really out there not knowing anything, and you may just be paying a huge tax because people are out here and they're struggling. But yeah, a lot of people are still moving. A lot of people are moving to Mexico, which I love Mexico. I think Mexico is great, but I also want people to be intentional. And Mexico is great, but also kind of what I always say, I'm you need to come with a heart of reciprocity, of really being a community member in any place that you go. And it's not necessarily just for you to escape. Countries and people and communities are not to be a balm for you in your healing. It's not. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I think it's really important. I think it's healing is the reciprocity of energy. I think it's healing is a lifestyle that is conducive with who you are and in alignment with who you are, allowing you to be more of who you are. But I definitely don't want people to go to places and use people in places and then be mad when things don't like work out, when it's not sustainable, right? Like when you're over it. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's not flourishing. Flourishing is taking accountability for who you are and who you bring to different countries. It's about saying, this is where I am, and this is what is environmental, and this is what I have allowed to be created, what I felt like I had to be in this situation. I know this is not me. I know I'm wanting something different for my lifestyle, regardless if it's a physical healing, a mental healing, maybe it's for your financial wellness, your mental wellness, whatever it may be. And then moving to a place, but knowing that that is my goal. And so I'm going to be intentional with how I use my time, my resources, my everything, but also that's my intention. I'm not just going to a place being like, entertain me, fix me, right? And I feel like with Mexico being so amazing and also so close to the United States, I think it may have that happen. And I don't like to see that. So those are my thoughts with that. What y'all saying in here? Hey, Dara. Okay. Oh, hey, Carla. Okay. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. Now I'm rested. I'm rested so I can like say things. Because before I was like a little bit running kind of ragged. But I'm just a believer in respect. That sounds cheesy. That sounds ridiculous. Like everyone's a believer in respect, but not really. I think that's where the conversation of like colonization comes from, especially speaking about like Black Americans moving abroad, or other people of color moving abroad, people of color who have passport privilege colonizing some other place. And I don't like the word colonization because we're not doing that. Okay? Like, please. Like, we're not raping and converting people's language. Like, stop that. I don't like that. What is happening though, and what could happen is just a disrespect and an entitlement. And I think it's something that we have to be mindful for. Like, I don't live in Spain hoping that it will turn into Atlanta. Like, I don't live in Barcelona hoping that it'll turn into Atlanta. I hope like some things, like you can bring some seasonings here, okay, and some Southern hospitality. But like, I'm not trying to convert this place into what makes me feel most comfortable, right? No, it's on me to be intentional about how I move in this world. It's on me to say, what is it that I don't really like? And I think a lot of times we don't actually sit down and say, what is not working for me? Why do I feel this dissonance? Is it this place? Is it the people I'm around? Is it who I feel I have to be? Is it the lifestyle? Like, I don't want to do this kind of rigmarole. Like, I don't know. We have to be really intentional, and we got to take accountability for ourselves, because Spain was here before I got here, and Mexico was there before you went and got, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the places. It is really important for us to be mindful. And I think sometimes when you're upset, when you are feeling uncomfortable and you don't like how your life is, or you don't like an aspect of where you're living, you just want the pain to stop, or you just want to feel good. And so it comes from a place of kind of disconnect, and you just want to fling yourself somewhere, and it feels good because the drinks are cheap, or they have siesta or whatever. And it's like, let's just be more intentional, because my thing has always been about, it's not just about getting abroad, it's about staying abroad. It's about thriving abroad on your terms. Creating a life well lived, you can do anywhere. I could do it in Atlanta if I wanted to. Okay? The thing is though, is that the space that living abroad creates is really profound, in my opinion, right? because you're moving to a space in which you don't know necessarily the rules. So you don't have this necessarily conscious and subconscious conditioning that you have, these assumptions, these beliefs that you may have from your home country, because now you're in a foreign land and you don't necessarily understand everything. Even if you're like the biggest Francophile and you still don't get it because you weren't raised in it, right? So that's the beauty in it. And also because you are foreign, to an extent, you are given the space to be foreign, to be odd, to do things your own way and not necessarily conform. To assimilate to a certain extent, okay, to be respectful, of course, but not necessarily to conform, because like you're not French, or you're moving to Thailand, like you're not Thai. So like whatever. So that's what's so profound to me about living abroad. That's what I'm trying to bring in to you guys. That's what the conversations are really about, is the power that living abroad can have in transforming your life, which is really just the power of space. It's the power of choice. It's the power of being radically present to your life, because everything is new and different. And like your eyes really are this big because you're like, it's like survival mode. And also like everything is vibrant. You're on guard, but also you're absorbing all these things. And also it requires you to make decisions that no one has ever asked you. And I always use a breakfast analogy because I think it's the easiest one, but from literally deciding what you're going to have for breakfast, because like they don't have your Cinnamon Toast Crunch and you're like, what am I going to eat for breakfast now? You're like, you could have what everyone else has. And you're like, that's weird because it's different. Those kind of small changes, right? And then the larger ones as to like, everyone closes down for a siesta. I mean, I could go home, and what am I going to do? My literal life schedule looks different. Am I going to take a nap? I guess I could take a nap in the middle of the day. I could do something else. These kinds of things, they allow you to make these intentional decisions. That's where I'm coming from when moving abroad. I'm not really about like, I'm just not about like just doing things cavalierly. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to think 5 years about it. It just means like you need to be committed to a vision and surrender to the experience. That's it for me. That went on long. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm like in my feelings maybe because it's my birthday tomorrow. I don't know. I haven't talked to y'all in a minute. I'm just in my feelings today. I will save this live, Karen. Go ahead. Thank you. Oh, in my travels. Hey. Kindness is important. Yes. Kindness is so important. Also, I think kindness to, the people you're going to be in community with, and showing yourself kindness, because sometimes people don't show you kindness too, or what you consider kindness is not what people are showing you, right? People have different ways of expressing endearment. Sometimes it's like, oh, they're there. Sometimes it's laughter, and you're like, all these people are laughing at me. Like, what are you doing? Don't laugh at me. And it's important to understand that, but you have to show yourself kindness. You have to be okay. Even if someone's like, I don't understand what you're saying, get out of here. Like, that will happen, or being tired of you. I've had a lot of people who are like, they switch to English and they're like, and I'm like, I'm going to keep on going in Spanish. And we're going to just take up all the time because I'm going to speak the Spanish. And at first I used to be like, oh my God, they don't understand what I'm saying. I thought like I would think about it. I think about like all my conjugations and my grammar. And I'm like, I said it. I rolled my R. Like, what are you talking about? I have to show myself kindness and be like, they can act like they don't understand what I'm saying. They cannot understand what I'm saying. I'm going to keep on going. That's it. Like, it's okay. It's okay. And also that puts that makes me less to be like, these people are so mean to me. It's just like, I'm going to just do me. So I'm going to say por favor, and it's going to be great. What else we got here? In My Travel says, that's what I don't like about Blagsit forums. They have no idea what it means to live abroad. It's not utopia. Oh, that's the thing. And what's unfortunate is that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to stop. Okay, I can't see. What's unfortunate is that, I know some of these Black Exit forums, I know the people who created them, and they are very intentional, very just awesome people. And I really have a problem. Actually, I did a live about this in like June or July, so you guys could check that out. I did a whole live about the Blagsit narrative, and my issue with the Blagsit narrative, especially as it's been depicted in the United States media, is that it centers escapism, it centers whiteness, and it's like about a fear. Like, look at all these Black people scampering away. Look at it, like, no. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I hate it, actually. I think that it does such a disservice, but this is what happens when we don't tell our own stories, which is also why I wanted to do Flourish in the Foreign, because we need to tell our own stories. Racism, systemic racism, has it been a part of people's considerations when moving abroad? Of course it is. I'm not naive. People always ask me, is it racist here? Is it racist there? Because that is the residue, that is the trauma of being in a systemically racist country, that you have to think about that. And also being in a world that is, anti-Black or colorist and all these other kinds of things, classist, all these things. But that's the thing. These kind of forms in which they say, like, just move to Africa. I have been to the continent of Africa, and I've interviewed a lot of people who live on the continent of Africa, who are from the continent of Africa, and we've had this discussion. Specifically, if you haven't listened to my episode with Jackie of the Jackie O Life, I think that was episode, I'm not even gonna guess, 7. I don't know. You go to the website, www.flourishintheforeign.com. We talk about that because she's actually half Black American, half Nigerian, Yoruba, and she spent a significant amount of time on the continent. And we talk about Black identity and what does Blackness mean. And Blackness is not a universal concept. Just as we know as Black Americans or Black British people, Blackness is not a monolith, period, right? It isn't. So I think that's the issue that I have with these forums, is that they try, I know why they do it, because they want to make it seem accessible to everyone. And it is. But it is accessible with nuance. I don't think you got to dumb it down. I don't think you got to water it down and be like, this is what you got to do. Leave everything and go, and it's a utopia and everything's going to be better. Like, I don't know. I could talk about that all the time though. Yes, you have to study the culture before moving abroad. This is the thing. You can study the culture before you move abroad. You can do your research, or you just have to literally surrender to the experience. You cannot, it's this kind of thing like I've been saying before. You cannot expect a place to be a balm for you. You can't. And so when you think someplace is going to be utopia, you think you're going to come to the Gambia or wherever you think is going to be utopia for you, and it may not be, even though it was for so-and-so, then you are already coming up with all these preconceived notions that are not really based in anything. It's just your expectation of how people should perceive and receive you, as opposed to surrendering to the experience and being a part of a community. I don't know. Yes, fortitude and determination. We stress ourselves too much. Yes. Yes. These Black Exit forums are so depressing because they think that by moving abroad, they will find their best lives. That's the thing. And that's why I hope that I hope what is communicated is the nuance. I'm really trying to make a nuance about moving abroad and cultivating your best life. It is not in the act of moving to a different country. No. It is in the magic, and it's in the resistance. If we want to get down to it, it is literally in the fact that you're moving to a place in which is not comfortable for you, that forces you to literally think differently and to consider a different way of life. So it's really in the dissonance. It's really in the contrast that creates a space for you to cultivate a life well lived, especially if you find yourself living kind of on automatic or kind of like a zombie, or you just like, you're like, I gotta be somewhere in which community supports this value that I have. Living in Spain, I will never, being around Spaniards and definitely around people who decide to move to Spain for the most part, I'm never going to be around people who are like, what are you doing not working, Christine? And you can take that however you want. I'm sure some Spanish people will be like, that's so whatever. But they don't have a hyper productivity culture, period. They can fight me on that. They don't have a hyper productivity culture. They don't have an ambitious culture. There are ambitious people, of course, obviously productive people, but do they have a hyper productive, hyper ambitious, work first culture like, say, in the United States? No, they don't. So I knew by moving to Spain, I would at least be around a community in which would actually give me the peer pressure to chill out and literally not be able to do things. Stores and things are closed on Sundays. If there's a festival, things are closed then. There's way more holidays than I've ever experienced in my life in the United States, in Spain. Like, that is just what it is. The whole month of August is a vacation. So a lot of things are closed. A lot of things are closed. So that's the thing, right? Like, I just made that decision. There are also things that are not so great about living in Spain. Like, for me, living off of the Spanish economy is not going to happen. Like, no, it doesn't work for me. There's a lot of different things, but it's about being intentional. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm rambling now. But it's about being intentional. It's about being intentional. But you got to know what living your best life is. It's kind of like what I talked about earlier too. It's like knowing the difference between, oh, I want to move abroad because it's cheap, or I want to move abroad and, engage in ethical geo arbitrage. Those are different things, right? Those are different things. It's a different kind of way of thinking about life and how you move in it. But I will say a good thing about the forums is that a lot of, I would say specifically Black Americans, though I think there are other Black people from the diaspora in some of them, is that they're realizing that it's possible. And I think that is also a magic in realizing that you could live your life somewhere else. And especially if they are Black American, there's been this just profound programming, this propaganda of like, America's number one, and everywhere else you're gonna be like, it's gonna be horrible, and realizing that's not the truth. Also realizing that the things that you thought that you wanted maybe are just programming and you don't care about it, and there's other things for you to consider. If anything, I think living abroad and being intentional about it requires you to be really considerate of yourself, really contemplate. I think that's why I mentioned earlier, I actually have a course about moving abroad, and a big portion of it is about consideration and contemplation. It's about deep thinking and visioning. It's about feeling and experience, also with research and practical skills and things like that. But it's really about being tapped in and understanding, what do you want? And I think as Black Americans, we have been so programmed through oppression and all of our history to be very dissociated from our bodies and really from our own thoughts and our own wants. People confuse visioning and manifestation with consumerism, and that's not the same. It's not, especially if you don't actually want these things. Someone's telling you you want these things. Deciding what is it that you want. I'm not saying you can't have a Tesla and live in Germany if that's what you want, but I'm just saying, really understanding, what are these voices? What are these urges? What is it that you are wanting to experience? And what other places are in alignment with that? Like, what are the other ways of living life, of doing life? I could talk about this all night. I wasn't expecting to talk this much. Here we are. In my travels says, that's right. I lived in Paris, Gothenburg, Seoul, and Beijing. And it may be Jordan next, but those moves were never about finding a better life abroad. Dara Morris, the awareness of options. That's the thing, right? You got to know that there are other ways to do things, of living life, having a lifestyle, just different things. And people are out here thriving. Different ways to support community, different ways to support citizens. I mean, I don't want to get into too much politics, but like, there's plenty of countries that are quote unquote, poorer than the United States that really stepped up during COVID and supported their population. And yes, the United States is a very large country. I mean, geographically, but also the number of people that live in the States. But also, it's the richest country in the world. And the things that they were saying they could not provide to their citizens, and all these other countries were like, we got you. I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes of what is just important to the politicians, the people. It's very interesting. Okay, with that, and also because my neighbor just turned on their thumping music. It's only 7:44 here, so I don't know if this is going to happen until midnight. I guess I should be thankful that they're choosing to be safe and happy at home, but also, thumping music. I don't know how I feel about it. Anyway, if you have any other questions, comments, or things like that, you can drop them now. And if not, then I will see y'all next week, because I will be back on IG, new episode of the podcast, very exciting, and a YouTube video, just a lot of content coming out at you. All right, if that is it, thank you all so very much. Talk to you later.